Are we live? I cannot tell if we are live. Nothing is working for me. I apologize. This is forever now. The YouTube streaming software will not work for me. So we are figuring this out sort of on the fly. It says I'm live, but I cannot access the stream myself. I wanted to get together today to talk about the roster again in light of the upcoming roster cutdown day, the upcoming final preseason game itself. There are no shortage of roster battles to be had, and I think that it is going to be an interesting cutdown day. One of the things that you always have to look at when cutdown day happens is that these players will be competing not only with the other players on the roster, but with the guys who are getting cut from all 32 teams around the NFL. So let me know if you are here and you can see this. Otherwise, I am just talking to myself because I cannot access this on my own. Anyway, I'll just go. Hey, I talk about this all the time. I may as well talk about this if there's no one here at all anyhow. So there are some interesting battles to watch. Obviously, on the offense, we're going to be looking at the wide receiver and offensive line positions. I think there may be more to talk about at the running back position than has otherwise been alluded to either on this channel or anywhere else. I think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire might not be a lock to make this roster. I really do, especially as we've seen a couple different players, Carson Steele stepping up and looking good also in pass protection. So that is a very interesting tidbit from this, how good Carson Steele looks in pass protection. Not only that, but he is the type of running back that is dangerous in open space in that he gets north and south very, very quick. He's not going to speed past anyone, but if you get him in open space against your third corner because he was the check down route in the flats, that third corner is in trouble. And Deneric Prince is the same type of guy. Obviously, Isaiah Pacheco, the same brand of runner, but a little bit smaller, a little bit faster. So there are those three positions on the offense. I am not sure what we're looking at as far as the tight end position is concerned. On the defensive side of the ball, the defensive line is going to be more interesting than I had previously noted. I have been rooting for Truman Jones for a while now. We're getting a little bit of mixed signal from Truman Jones. He is looking much more active in the preseason games than he did last season. He is getting push without getting penetration. So that is one of the things. Hello, Tubuser. Good to see you too. Sorry, I botched the name. So the defensive end position is going to be – I was wondering coming into this preseason whether or not Malik Herring would be a Kansas City Chief. Guys, he's about as solid as it gets for his level of play. He might not knock the doors off. He's not going to change the game, but he's going to be a guy who is able to step in and do rotational work for the Kansas City Chiefs. The linebackers, so you never want to call a surprise cut. I don't think that Jack Cochran has anything to worry about, but those two young linebackers looked awfully good against the Lions in both phases of the game, defense and special teams, from which they were required to play. So I don't want to call that. I'm a big Jack Cochran fan, but I think that he is safe on the roster. There's going to be a numbers crunch in general for this team. So if you have anything you want to talk about, let me know in the comments. I have got the stream working now so I can see your comments as they come. But with the defensive ends. Felix Enudike-Uzoma, Mike Dana, Malik Herring, and George Karlaftis are the locks. That is 4 players. After that, Neil Farrell is still listed by the Kansas City Chiefs as a defensive end. It's difficult to imagine a 325-pound defensive end, but they seem to like him at that spot. He doesn't play there. I'm just saying. Truman Jones, if the Kansas City Chiefs decide to carry 5 defensive ends into the season so here's the thing with carrying 5 defensive ends into the season. You're going to have to cut one of them eventually anyway because of Charles Omenihu coming back to the team. It's easier oftentimes to slip a player through waivers later in the season. So if you're expecting Charles Omenihu around the week 8 mark, there's going to be so many guys that are coming in and out of different teams by that point that a guy like Truman Jones, even if he puts up a few interesting reps, might still be able to slip through the waiver wire and end up on your practice squad. But that becomes a concern if you're only carrying 4. So the real interesting thing for this team is going to be the numbers crunch in general, and then what it looks like when the Chiefs are filtering through the waiver wire on cutdown day, because there are going to be numerous names. You can look around some of the projected cuts around the NFL. There's a lot of guys that are rumored to be cut that would not start for the Kansas City Chiefs, but could certainly bring up the floor at some of these positions. Hello, Ruben. How are you doing? So last season, I was trying to get this pulled up. It's hard for me to talk and type at the same time. I'm not quite that talented. Last season, going into the first week, the Chiefs carried 5 defensive ends: George Karlaftis, Mike Dana, Malik Herring, Felix Enudike-Uzoma, and B.J. Thompson. The only real difference this year would be swapping out B.J. Thompson for Truman Jones. B.J. Thompson, I've said it before, and I don't mean to put anything negative out there, any bad juju, but it is difficult for me to imagine him playing football again. Look, I don't know details about the medical event that he had, but those are seizures and a heart attack are 2 things. I don't think I've ever seen anyone play in the NFL. So seizures related to concussions, I have seen players play after. I don't know that I have ever seen anyone play after just a medical emergency seizure unrelated to play on the football field. So it is difficult for me to imagine. No insight to the event, right? It is difficult for me to imagine simply from what I know about both seizures and heart attacks. So, I keep getting told it wasn't a heart attack. It was a different word that means almost heart attack, but something slightly different. So let me know if you know what that is. But whatever the case, right? This still the same type of thing. The Chiefs last season carried 5 defensive tackles into the season. Derek Nottie, Turk Wharton, Keandre Coburn, Matt Dickerson, and Neil Farrell. This was, of course, Chris Jones was on his we'll just say BS. We'll just say BS. He was on his BS at the time, but it ended up being those 5 names, and Matt Dickerson, I think, was the first one cut. And then Keandre Coburn, the Chiefs tried to slide him through to the practice squad and were unsuccessful in that. Nicholas Moreno says, good to see you. Enjoy your reports. I hope Steele makes the roster. Give Pacheco a breather. I think Steele is a lock at this point. I think that – so last year, I'll get to the running backs. If I can find this here. Last season, going into the year, the Kansas City Chiefs carried 3 running backs and 0 fullbacks. They carried Isaiah Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Jerick McKinnon. That is that's a skeleton crew at the running back position. It did not hurt them because they kept several names for running back on their practice squad through whom they filtered during the course of the year. There were a number of guys that ended up coming up and playing one or two games for the Chiefs during the season. It is difficult for me to believe that is going to be the plan for the Kansas City Chiefs this season as well. And the reason, so they're carrying a fullback. They are listing Carson Steele as a fullback. So carrying three running backs and a fullback means that you are going to have to cut somewhere else on the offense. Last year, they carried 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 7 wide receivers, 3 tight ends, and 10 offensive linemen. I don't know anyone who hopes they carry fewer than the 9 or 10 offensive linemen this season. I don't know anyone who hopes they carry fewer than 7 wide receivers this season. So where would you get that extra roster spot on the offensive side of things? 25 offensive players, 25 defensive players, and 3 special teamers last year. So this is a numbers crunch for the Chiefs. The way that you would probably get to 4 running backs would be to cut an offensive lineman from the numbers last year, carrying 9 offensive linemen. But then the Chiefs don't use more than basically 5 offensive linemen anyway, barring injury. So that's sort of where you get the impetus to cut an offensive lineman from that number. But guys, I was really hoping they would give these offensive linemen a little bit of rotation. These offensive linemen have essentially played 4 seasons over the last 3 years of football. Anyone who's here, right? But I should look at those numbers. I don't think that would be anyone. So, but even over the last 2 seasons, 2 Super Bowl runs for this team, when you don't have any sort of rotation on the offensive line, that gets difficult for these 300-plus pounders to be running around out there. So if you were going to keep 4 running backs, Isaiah Pacheco, you're keeping. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is tentatively, I believe, listed as the backup running back. Deneric Prince, I think, is the type of all-purpose running back you really want to have on the roster. And then Carson Steele, who is listed at fullback. Do the Kansas City Chiefs want to roll with 2 running backs and a fullback on the roster? I don't know if they really do. I think Carson Steele, however, is a lock to make this roster, but it makes the numbers crunchy. I don't know at this point if I necessarily see Clyde Edwards-Helaire making the roster. He has missed a lot of time this preseason. He has missed a lot of time during the course of his career. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, before last season, I remember crunching the numbers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire actually played on a per-game basis less than Sammy the Hammy Watkins. So you can like Clyde all you want, right? You can root for Clyde all you want. It is difficult to justify his making the roster outside of the fact that he has a relatively high floor. That said, that relatively high floor provided you 70 attempts, 223 yards for a 3.2 yard average last season. How easy is it to justify that over taking a chance on someone like Deneric Prince? Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been in a steady decline during his tenure with the Kansas City Chiefs as a rookie, providing 181 carries, 803 yards, and a 4.4 yard average. He did this in 13 games. He was only able to be on the field for 13 games. As a sophomore in the NFL, he provided 119 attempts for a 5.17 yard for 517 yards, a 4.3 yard average. and he was only on the field for 10 games. During his third season, 71 attempts, 302 yards. That is another 4.3 yard average. He was only on the field for 10 games, only 6 starts. Last season, the fewest attempts of his career for 70, the fewest yards of his career, 223, and the lowest average of his career, 3.2 yards per carry. Is that he was available for 15 games, only had 3 starts. Is that precisely what you want to have on your roster? I don't know that it's worth having him on your roster as opposed to giving the shot to someone like Deneric Prince, who is bigger than the 5'7", 207 pounds that you get from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Maybe he can move the pile. We know Clyde cannot move the pile. We know Clyde has vision issues and will run into the back of his linemen all too often. We don't know that about Deneric Prince. So I think at some point you have to just throw your hands in the air and take a chance on someone, especially when what you're looking at is Isaiah Pacheco being your starter anyway. Isaiah Pacheco is going to give you, like he did his first 2 seasons, as a rookie, 170 attempts for 830 yards. That would be the best season of Clyde's career. Last season, he gave you 205 attempts for 935 yards, would be by far the best season of Clyde Edwards-Helaire's career. As a rookie, he had a 4.9 yard average, would be a career best for Clyde. And last season, he had a 4.6 yard average, which I believe Clyde's career high is either 4.6 or 4.5. I just looked at it. I should remember. But he was not getting the ball 205 times either. Nearly a 1,000-yard rusher last season. Tube says, I think we should go for one upside. Oh, no, what am I doing? One upside potential and 2 pass blocking when looking at running backs. We always need a running back when there is significant injury to Pacheco. Yeah, that's not a bad thought. So the only thing that worries me about Carson Steele, the thing that worries me about having a fullback on the roster, and the thing that worries me about Carson Steele looking as good in pass blocking as he has, is that might be a tip-off to the defense. Carson Steele is the lone back standing next to Patrick Mahomes in the shotgun. You know it's a pass. Now, obviously, Andy Reid is smart enough to not let that be a tip. Andy Reid is smart enough to hand the ball to Carson Steele from that position every once in a while. Andy Reid is smart enough to know that you don't just keep the guy back there to pass block. You have him chip someone, and then he's out in the flats, because Patrick Mahomes, with 5 offensive targets, 5 weapons on the field, and maybe he's got to do some dancing to get away from people. You know he can do that. So that, I think Andy Reid is smart enough to mitigate the risk that might be having a fullback on the roster and having a fullback to be the guy on the field in any given circumstance. That said, last season, you saw Isaiah Pacheco with 44 receptions and a 5.5 yard average per reception for 244 yards total. That's not bad, but certainly it's not a 1,000-yard receiver in the backfield. It's not a 500-yard guy. It's a guy that's getting a 5.5-yard average. If you want to tee off on that as a defensive coordinator, you're basically risking a 5.5-yard reception. That's how you kind of have to look at things in that position. So that is how I feel about the running back position for the Kansas City Chiefs and whether or not they're going to be carrying those players and how many. I think we're only going to see 3. I think we're going to see 2 running backs and a fullback, and I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire will not be one of them. But that is probably a hot take because Clyde Edwards-Helaire certainly has a higher floor than Deneric Prince. You know who it is that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is. Quarterback position, I think, is pretty well spoken for. I don't think we're going to see any surprises there. Last season, the Kansas City Chiefs took 7 wide receivers into the first week of the year. Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, Justin Watson, Richie James, Rashee Rice, and Justin Ross. Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Richie James are no longer among those active for the Kansas City Chiefs. Marquez Valdez-Scantling finds himself a Buffalo Bill for the time being. And I believe Richie James is still looking for work, but I might be wrong on that front. So when we are talking about who the Chiefs will take into the season at the wide receiver position, I'm going to be called stupid all the livelong day, and I'm willing to be called stupid all the livelong day. I think both Justin Ross and Nico Remigio will make this roster. I think that Hollywood Brown becomes the linchpin, becomes the big X factor in this. How long is his injury? Do the Kansas City Chiefs know how long his injury will last? If it's only a week, if it's only 2 weeks, you're probably not doing any numbers business with your wide receivers as far as trying to roster another guy. But if it is something stickier than that, probably you are going to try. So the big question marks from the 7 who made it last year, in my opinion, are Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. Justin Watson is going to be on the team. Rashee Rice obviously is going to be on the team. Xavier Worthy obviously on the team. And Hollywood Brown on the team. So that's 4 right there. You've got 5, 6, 7. You've got 3 roster spots outside of that. Justin Ross and Nico Remigio, in my opinion, making the team means you have 1 roster spot to divvy between Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. I don't know what you do at this point if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. Both of those players have shown you that they are willing to be without a whole lot of merit on the roster. Both of those players have shown you that they are willing to look. Sky Moore seems to be a high effort guy. Sky Moore seems to be a guy that is not particularly a favorite of Patrick Mahomes. The guys on All Chiefed Up did some work and talked about his average separation and things like that. I trust them in their work. I believe them. I don't know why it doesn't show up on the field. I don't know why it doesn't translate to Sky Moore getting receptions, getting targets, etc. It doesn't. Sky Moore in his second season had the exact same year that he had in his first season. So not looking good there. What do you want to do as an offense with 2 guys that have proven they can't really A, stay on the field, or B, be productive? I really don't know. If you have any questions for me, leave them in the comments. Anything you want to talk about here. I just kind of wanted to hang out and chat about the roster in general. Gary, Ruben, it's good to see you too. Emery, good to see you as well. Yeah, that's all we've got so far. I would love to know what you want to talk about. If there's anything you want to hear about here on the channel, if there are any videos you would like me to make, be sure to comment that as well. This time of the season, especially after this coming game, there might be some time to hit some random type stuff on the channel as opposed to stuff that will be regularly scheduled here moving forward. I want to have a relatively set weekly schedule for what that is worth. Sometimes the things that I have in mind don't work out. So I am willing to move on from certain segments on a week-by-week basis. If there's anything you guys want to see on a weekly tryout for the Kansas City Chiefs, let me know as well. Is there anyone here? Am I talking to myself? All of my streaming stuff is kind of messy right now. Nothing is loading properly, so I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, the defense. So last season, if I can get down here, the Chiefs carried 4 safeties into the season. Let me see if I. Oh, no, I've missed something. C Baby to King says, keep rocking. That is the plan. Last season, the David says, I'm here. It's good to see you, David. I feel like I haven't heard from you in a while. Is that true? Safeties carried into the season last year, Justin Reed, Brian Cook, Chamari Connor, and Mike Edwards. Obviously, probably you're translating that directly this season into Justin Reed, Brian Cook, Chamari Connor, and Jaden Hicks. Jaden Hicks, you've been busy, David. I understand. Probably you're just swapping out Mike Edwards for Jaden Hicks, but that safety position for the Chiefs is going to be an interesting one because Jaden Hicks has played himself into quite the reputation on that back end. Jaden Hicks has proven that not only can he hang in the NFL, but he might be a special type of playmaker in the making. So Justin Reed has given you all sorts of reps the past few seasons. Justin Reed last season for the Kansas City Chiefs, if I can find it down here real quick, Justin Reed played 981 snaps for this defense. In 2022, Justin Reed played 1,113 snaps for this defense. Those were the largest numbers of his career. In Houston, he never played more than 917 snaps. Mostly, so basically he averaged, I would, just looking at the numbers, imagine probably right around 900 snaps per season. So to have 981 snaps last season and 1,113 snaps during the 2022 season, that's a big step up for Justin Reed. Justin Reed has also a monster contract for this team. If the Chiefs were able to find an actual humdinger in Jaden Hicks, then it could mean going forward that Justin Reed has to consider moving on or redoing his contract, because he's making a lot of money for the Chiefs this season. David says, I have to say I agree with most of your analysis. I think the Chiefs may have tired of waiting for Kadarius Toney. Yeah, so the funny thing, I say funny thing, maybe the fortunate thing about the Kadarius Toney situation is I think you're still likely to be able to find a trade partner for him. You're not getting what you traded for him. And you shouldn't want to, right? You've got 2 Super Bowls with the guy on the roster. The guy was one of the biggest playmakers in that Super Bowl against the Eagles. So, in my opinion, regardless of what Kadarius Toney did last season, and I think they traded either a 3rd and a 5th or a 3rd and a 7th for him, you won that trade. You've got 2 Super Bowls now. You won that trade. If you can move on from Kadarius Toney for a 7th round pick, if you can move on from Kadarius Toney for Kadarius Toney and a 7th round pick for someone else's 6th round pick, I think you have to do it. He's got a world of potential. At some point, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to want sure things. They're going to want guys that they can count on for something. Kadarius Toney has proven time and again, counting on him for something gets you disappointed. But that level of potential, that 40-yard dash, those movement skills, those are always going to have an audience in the NFL as far as general managers and front offices are concerned. So if you can move on from him for something, I think you do it. I think you consider that trade won. And there's no regrets there, right? You rolled the dice. You got one Super Bowl kind of because of Kadarius Toney. That punt return was a huge deal in that game, and you won. You won that deal. Move on. Ruben says Hicks gonna be a problem. Yeah, man. And here's the thing with Hicks. He's on the big side for a safety, 6'2", 217, I think, something like that. So he's on the big side for them. He's not huge. He's not massive. He's not Jalen Carley's out of Mizzou from last season, but he's big. But once you get past that, his physical qualities, his tools are all kind of right down the middle of the road, meaning that what he's doing is pure intelligence, pure grit, pure determination, and willingness to sacrifice to make the play. That's the interesting thing with Jaden Hicks. And oftentimes the greats are kind of this way. Jerry Rice, for example, Google Jerry Rice's 40-yard dash. You're going to be very surprised. Jerry Rice, the greatest wide receiver of all time, even if he's yelling at reporters from Kansas City, Missouri. Shout out to Noah. But even if that's the case, not a whole lot of physical merit to that. Just wasn't. He was just a hard worker. He was really good at catching the football, good at football skills, did not have the fastest 40-yard dash, was not the tallest guy on the field at any point. All of these things, probably had a terrible three-cone drill, whatever that means, but he was just a good player, good at playing the sport of football. Marcus Allen, one of the guys who was in conversation for greatest running back of all time before he retired. He retired with the touchdown record for running backs. He was a fast guy. I don't think he was ever the fastest guy on the field. He was never Bo Jackson fast, right? Barry Sanders, I don't know about Barry Sanders' 40-yard dash. I know that Barry Sanders had thighs the size of guys. His legs were massive, and he was still agile and quick. Now, he obviously had a fast 40-yard dash, but I don't know it off the top of my head. But again, he was undersized. Well, he was under height. His weight was right on par. Walter Payton, another of the greatest of all time at the running back position. I don't believe he was particularly big or fast or any of those things. Certainly he was fast enough at the time. Certainly he was definitely strong enough. That was another guy who would be folded in half before he was taken off his feet. But anyway, I don't remember how I got on. Oh yeah, Jaden Hicks. Jaden Hicks is another one of these guys that doesn't have, you're not wowed by his 40-yard dash. You weren't taken aback by him in the Underwear Olympics. His combine numbers kind of leave some stuff to be desired, but he gets on the field and just says, okay, if you're willing to catch it, I'm willing to make you regret it. And he does that time after time. So yeah, that is going to be an interesting thing for the Kansas City Chiefs moving forward, because Brett Veach now. So I think Jalen Watson can play. I think Joshua Williams can play. I think Brian Cook can play, right? All of these things. But Trent McDuffie is an all-pro. I think Jaden Hicks has all-pro potential. So now you're looking at a guy who has drafted two players that are going to be stalwarts in that defensive backfield. How does he deal with it? At some point, you have to not draft 4 defensive backs a season, right? At some point, if you were pouring those numbers into the offensive line or the wide receiver position, a few more things might be figured out. We see every year a guy drafted in the 5th round who ends up being the 3rd wide receiver for his team. Can't the Chiefs move on to that by now? But apparently not, because they have – the news broke today, I guess, that the Kansas City Chiefs, or maybe it was an interview, I can't remember. I saw the title on Arrowhead Pride, but I didn't actually click on the article, that apparently the number 2 cornerback position for the Kansas City Chiefs might be by committee. So I guess we're just dealing with these sorts of things now, right? But I think Jalen Watson is going to be a lock. So yeah, let's look at the. I forgot what I was here for. Let's look at the cornerback position for the Chiefs. Last year, they took into the season 5 cornerbacks. We have talked about this a little bit on the channel before. Trent McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, and Nick Jones. Now, here's the funny thing. Trent McDuffie's still here. L'Jarius Sneed is gone. Jalen Watson's still here. Joshua Williams still here. So those guys move up to the top 3, which means that you would imagine Nick Jones is slotted in there at the number 4 spot. Nick Jones, the last depth chart that was released, which was the first depth chart that was released, Nick Jones is all the way down at 9. So now there are 4 guys in between where you would have mathematically had him, just based on last year's guys and where he is this season. So it's going to be an interesting year for the cornerbacks from that standpoint. We might not be relying on them as much as in seasons past. Justin Reed has said that he will be ready for week 1. Jaden Hicks is certainly going to play week 1. Brian Cook has come back from that injury. And Chamari Connor has been working a lot of slot stuff for the Kansas City Chiefs. So when you add all of that up, Chamari Connor being a versatile guy in this defense, it may be that the Chiefs are taking – the Chiefs will be using fewer cornerbacks in the rotation. The Chiefs might be using fewer cornerbacks on the field at any given time because they're playing more safeties and quote-unquote defensive backs. So the interesting thing with that is a couple seasons ago when you had Honey Badger was sort of your center fielder safety, right? Juan Thornhill was your corner hybrid safety. And then you had Dirty Dan, who was your enforcer at the safety position. Now, your top 3 guys, all 3 of your top 3 guys, Justin Reed, Jaden Hicks, Brian Cook, they are all 3 that enforcer type guy. So I don't know how this is going to work, but it's going to be interesting for sure because they are all big guys at the safety position who really like to hit. There's no L'Jarius Sneed this season, right? And that is not to be undervalued for this team. But what does it mean? What does it actually mean for this team? L'Jarius Sneed was as shut down a corner as we have seen in Kansas City for a very long time. That's still 1 player per play, right? L'Jarius Sneed wasn't out there covering 2 players. He was out there covering 1 player, shutting them down, but it was 1 guy. I think the impact on this defense will be great not having him. But I don't know that it will be devastating. I think it is unfortunate that the Kansas City Chiefs could not find a way to keep both L'Jarius Sneed and Chris Jones. But guys, that's the way the cookie crumbles. If the offense was able to lose Tyreek Hill and move on from it, we still have hope for the defense being able to lose L'Jarius Sneed and move on from it. Anyone have anything they want to talk about in this video? David says, I think we will miss Willie Gay more than Sneed. I don't think so. I think that Willie Gay was an electric player. Willie Gay was a guy who made some of the most incredible and athletic defensive plays we've seen in Kansas City for a long time. He was not eliminating an entire player on each play of the game. L'Jarius Sneed, by the way, rarely came out, right? Rarely came out of the game. So it is, I think that, and I had this video sort of all drafted up to talk about the top 100 and the NFL players, top 100 voted on by the players, and just never really got around to it. I know where it was going. It felt too fanboyish, if that makes any sense. And I don't know if that's what you guys come here for. I try to think of the channel as news analysis and opinion, but this was really going to be more of a rah-rah type of video. And not that I'm against that sort of thing, but I don't know if I was going to hit the money with it. But anyway, the fact that L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie both somehow weren't on the top 100 is absolutely baffling and mind-blowing. I understand that the Chiefs have the best player in the entire NFL, but you don't win the Super Bowl with three guys in the top 100 2 consecutive years, especially when you put the best player in the NFL at number 4. So the math wasn't mathing with that list. So anyway, David says, I'm not sure why I come here either. Hey, man, I do my best. Cut me some slack, huh? Ruben says, what's going on with the cornerback we drafted from Tennessee, Kamal Hadden? I don't know. Kamal Hadden, his style is very L'Jarius Sneed-like. Not saying he's L'Jarius Sneed. I think right now he's just buried on that depth chart. I think that he was a roll of the dice as a draft pick because L'Jarius Sneed played like L'Jarius Sneed, but he also ran a 4.37 40 and I believe had a 40 or a 41-inch vertical, right? He was an explosive guy. Kamal Hadden does not have a great 40-yard dash. Kamal Hadden, I believe, had a 34-inch vertical. Might be making that up completely. Might be making that up whole cloth. But I think Kamal Hadden is going to need a year on the – I think Kamal Hadden's a practice squad candidate. I think he's going to need some time to really learn the NFL game. I don't know that he is there right now. I haven't seen a whole lot of him. But, this is just from what I saw from him coming out, right? And I haven't seen a whole lot since he's been in the NFL. I haven't seen a whole lot in the preseason. I don't know. I don't want to blow smoke, So David says you better be just kidding, David. I work hard over here. I work hard every day of my life. That's from a Queen song. Nat says, I hope Veach and Reed watch your channel. I'm not going to say they do, but definitely they do not, right? I wish I had them as viewers. I wish I could have some sort of inside info from them, if nothing else. Veach, if you're watching this, I am on Twitter at ScramblingThe, so hit me up with little tidbits that you have every now and again. So I think we pretty much got through the roster. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull up some cut candidates. Surprise cut candidates. We will talk about surprise cut candidates. NFL cut candidates, one player from each team who could be released from Pro Football Network. Arizona Cardinals wide receiver Zach Pascal. I would not want Zach Pascal. I don't think that he would make the roster here. From Atlanta, safety Richie Grant. Don't want another safety. I do not want another safety here for the Kansas City Chiefs. Brett Veach has had enough fun for one off season. Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Tylan Wallace. It is now or never for Tylan Wallace, who was a 4th-round pick in 2021. He combined for just 7 catches over his first 3 seasons and is a long shot to crack the Baltimore 53-man roster. I don't think that is someone that we need here. Buffalo Bills, you're going to like this one. Guess. If you had to guess, who's a surprise cut candidate for the Buffalo Bills? 5, 4, 3, 2. MVS is Marquez Valdez-Scantling. It is, man, isn't it absolutely maddening how the Kansas City Chiefs can go from one season making Juju Smith-Schuster, who everyone thought was washed up and out of the league, the number one wide receiver in the offense. He gets injured and the Chiefs still don't fall off. And then they win a Super Bowl. Then they cut him. He goes to the Patriots, does absolutely nothing. The Kansas City Chiefs, for all intents and purposes, last year, early in the season, had Marquez Valdez-Scantling as their number one wide receiver. No one had emerged yet. Justin Watson was playing the X position. Rashee Rice was still a rookie, was not looking terribly great out there, if we're being completely honest with one another. MVS was, for all intents and purposes, for the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season, the Chiefs' number one wide receiver. Gets cut, goes to Buffalo, and they can't figure out what to do with him. They can't figure out what to do with old MVS in Buffalo, and he might not make it to week 1 for them. He might be part of the 90-man cut down. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Advertisements all over this. Carolina Panthers wide receiver Terrace Marshall Jr. I don't think Terrace Marshall Jr. I don't know what you would do with him here in Kansas City. It's interesting to see how many wide receivers find themselves on this list, right? If you spend any amount of time on the negative parts of Chiefs Twitter, the negativity is all about Brett Veach not being able to draft wide receivers. And you can go down this list. I guarantee you probably 30% of these names will be wide receivers. 30% of the names for surprise cuts on the last game, after the last game of the preseason, 30% of those names probably are going to be wide receivers. It's difficult to draft wide receivers. It's difficult to play wide receiver in the NFL. It's not sandlot football. You don't just try to get open. You don't just run the route that's called. There are numbers of reads you have to make, and we've all seen it. You're going to take one good smack, and you might not be the same. All of a sudden, you've got alligator arms out there, X, Y, and Z, right? Bruce says, I really appreciate your content. I'm all in on your videos. Thanks for keeping me informed about our Chiefs. Go Chiefs. Thank you for being here, Bruce. If you have anything you want to see me talk about either here or making a video about it, let me know, Bruce. There's going to be some downtime, maybe after the 53-man cut, because there are the next couple names on this potential surprise cuts are guys that maybe. Chicago Bears defensive end Dominique Robinson. Dominique Robinson saw his playing time dip from 50% as a rookie to just 35% in 2023. He'll enter camp competing with Montez Sweat and Austin Booker for a role on the edge, setting the stage for a potential release. Dominique Robinson, while I am a Truman Jones fan, would probably be an upgrade over Truman Jones on the roster. Hold on. Sorry. So, Dominique Robinson, if he gets cut, is 6'5", 253 pounds. Ended up with a 4.72 40-yard dash, 33 1/4-inch arms, a 41-inch vertical, a 10-foot-1-inch broad jump, and 25 reps on the bench press. If Dominique Robinson finds himself cut, 1,000% expect the Kansas City Chiefs to at least make that call. If the Kansas City Chiefs can get Dominique Robinson, I believe so. Okay, if he comes to the Chiefs via the waiver wire, okay, so that's unlikely because he's still on his rookie contract, right? But if he comes to the Chiefs via the waiver wire, he would still be attached to his rookie contract. If he clears waivers, he gets to sign as just a free agent. The next name on this list is Cincinnati Bengals offensive tackle Jackson Carman. Jackson Carman, if he were to get cut by the Bengals, I believe would be just straight up a free agent. I think that he is a veteran. Oh, of course, I am misspelling things because I'm fat fingering everything. Jackson Carman. 6'5", 322 pounds. He was drafted in 2021, so no, he would still be on that rookie contract. This would be the final year, I believe, of his rookie contract. A second-round pick, 46 overall. Ended up with 32 and a half-inch arms, so he would not be passing that. David Howe says, political ads keep interrupting you. Zulu says, give this guy a big thumbs up. David, here's something I need to put out there. I promised you guys I would not make this a political channel. I'm not going to talk about politics on here. That is 1,000% true. That remains true. That will remain true. You're not going to hear me talk about politics. We are here for football. I am not going to sully that relationship. That said, I do not pick what ads YouTube is going to run on this channel. So I've gotten a little bit of pushback in the comments section about X, Y, and Z ads are playing on your videos. I don't get to say. So I promise you, it is not my choice that political ads play on this channel. Definitely not my choice that political ads get to play on this channel. Moving on the potential cuts list, Cleveland Browns wide receiver David Bell. I don't think the Chiefs have any use for that. Dallas Cowboys tight end Peyton Hendershot. I'm going to be real honest. Don't know. Denver Broncos wide receiver Tim Patrick. I don't think so. Detroit Lions defensive tackle Levi Onwuzurike. I don't know that I remember. Let's see. Let's look up Levi. 6'3", 290, a former second-round pick, 41st overall. 33-inch arms, 4'8", 640-yard dash, 29 bench press reps. So you're looking at a pretty big guy. You're looking at a guy that is, well, he's a strong guy. Levi Onwuzurike. I don't know how much he's played over the last couple. It seems I haven't heard that name really in a while. David says that wasn't criticism. I just hope you get paid by someone. You won't get rich on $1 a month. You don't know that. If I have enough $1 a month patrons, I won't have to work my job and do this. I will just do this. If I set up that OnlyFans, guys, I promise to let you know. I don't know if I can charge a full $1 on there. Probably go around the 25 or 30 cents a month on the OnlyFans. Let's see here. The next name on this list, Green Bay Packers kicker Anders Carlson. No, Chiefs don't need a kicker. Houston Texans wide receiver Robert Woods. Again, another wide receiver. Indianapolis Colts tight end Mo Alley Cox. I don't think so. Jacksonville Jaguars cornerback Trey Flowers. Nope. Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver, guess. Kadarius Toney. Wahoba says, sell pics of Priest Holmes. On OnlyFans? I guess that would work. That guy, do you remember Priest Holmes? That guy was like one great big muscle. That guy made me believe that there was no way the testing policy in the NFL was real. That guy was he was weird though, right? Like he wasn't a bulky guy, but he looked like claymation because everything was just continually curved. His biceps were rounded out. His legs were not quite as big as the aforementioned Barry Sanders, but still. Las Vegas Raiders tight end Harrison Bryant. Don't think so. Los Angeles Chargers linebacker Chris Rumpf. Nope. Los Angeles Rams wide receiver Tyler Johnson, another wide receiver. I guarantee you there's 10 on this list. Miami Dolphins running back Jeff Wilson. I don't think so. Minnesota Vikings wide receiver tight end N'Keal Harry. I like N'Keal Harry. I really do like N'Keal Harry. He is a former first-round pick. Could Brett Veach do the Brett Veach thing and bring in a former first-round pick? I think that you would probably see him introduced to the practice squad rather than the 53 if he were to be signed, I believe. So he's cleared waivers, I think, a couple times. So he's definitely able to be a free agent. New England Patriots wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster not expected to make the opening day roster. New Orleans Saints defensive end Peyton Turner. If you can get Peyton Turner at a discount, I would go for that. New York Giants cornerback Aaron Robinson. I don't think so. New York Jets wide receiver Allen Lazard. So this is an interesting one. Allen Lazard, because you're looking at another guy who was next to Aaron Rodgers, catching passes from Aaron Rodgers, lining up next to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's 6'4" and 5/8". He's essentially 6'5", 227 pounds, 4.55 40-yard dash, 38-inch vertical, 10-foot 4-inch broad jump, 17 reps on the bench press. Just from the aspect of bringing someone into camp, and I don't think that he's a wide receiver to me. I don't think you're looking at a guy who is going to be a converted Jody Fortson type tight end wide receiver. I think Allen Lazard is a wide receiver. If you can swing it, I wouldn't be against it. If that means knocking Nico Remigio down to the practice squad for a year, I think you might make that leap. David says, how can George Kittle be the best tight end if he's been AWOL during both of his Super Bowls? Well, that's easy, David. He's not. He is not the best tight end. Travis Kelce is. All of this heresy from all of these, they just don't like the Chiefs. I've said this a million times on the channel, and I've said it because I believe it. I've said it not because I'm trying to be the rah-rah guy. I've said it not because I'm trying to stir things up. I've said it not because it's a hot take. Kansas City is flyover country. If they can take absolutely anything from the Kansas City Chiefs, they will, because, well, they're all riding from New York. They're all riding from Los Angeles. They're all riding from Florida. No one is riding from Kansas City. If they can take anything from this franchise, they will do it. This is flyover country. The coasts have a non-stated distaste and disgust for flyover country. They write us off. And look, this sounds salty. This sounds like I'm just being sort of pissy. I 1,000% believe this. I 1,000% believe this. I believe that the Midwest, flyover country in the South, other parts of the country kind of, no, not them. Not the flyovers, not the South, not at all, right? I 1,000% believe that they feel that way. So they don't want to, I don't think it's even conscious. I don't think they are consciously making the effort to act this way. I think that it's just, well, he can't be the best tight end in football. He plays for Kansas City. You can look at the top 100 and see this very clearly. An all-pro cornerback in Trent McDuffie doesn't make the top 100. A guy who was probably the best cornerback in the league last year on a very quiet basis, L'Jarius Sneed, didn't make the top 100. You can't convince me that that was an informed decision. Philadelphia Eagles cornerback James Bradbury, I don't think so. Guess who the potential cut for the Pittsburgh Steelers is? This would be absolutely mind-blowing, guys. Pro Football Network believes Russell Wilson might get cut by the Steelers. I have not paid close enough attention to the Steelers to know if that is an actual threat. I have not paid enough attention to the Steelers to know if that might be true, but golly, would that be absolutely hilarious. San Francisco 49ers cornerback Ambry Thomas. I liked Ambry Thomas. That would be a maybe for me. If you can get him on your practice squad, I think I would definitely be interested in that. Seattle Seahawks wide receiver D. Eskridge. D. Eskridge was a second-round pick in 2021, and he's been a total bust. With just 7 catches over his first 3 seasons, including 0 in 2023, he needs a huge camp in order to earn a roster spot. These are surprise cuts, guys. Why are you listing a guy who had 0 receptions last year? Again, though, a wide receiver. Tampa Bay Buccaneers tight end Kieft. Just going to be real honest, I don't know. Tennessee Titans wide receiver Treylon Burks. There's been a lot of talk about the Chiefs trading for Treylon Burks. I don't understand that. Treylon Burks is kind of the same level of play. So he's a different wide receiver than the Kansas City Chiefs have on roster. But if you were like talking about this in Madden terms, all the Chiefs wide receivers are rated 76. Treylon Burks is rated 76. Why would you trade for that guy? I don't get it. Washington Commanders defensive lineman Benning Patawai. Benning Patawai could be a man without a role. He's behind starters Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen on the depth chart, and the Commanders just used a second-round pick on Jerzon Newton. It's hard to envision Patawai sticking around. If it's a defensive tackle, sure. I mean, I don't know who that is. Benning Patawai? Benning. I'm sure this is absolutely scintillating to watch me type things into Wikipedia. 6'3", 290 pounds, so another 6'3", 290 defensive tackle. And that's all. That's all he's got. He didn't do anything at the pro day or the combine except for 6'3", 293, 31.5-inch arms with a 10'5" hand. It's a big hand. Not the longest arms. Anybody have anything they want to talk about? We are on the 1 hour mark. I had sort of budgeted an hour into the day to do this, but I am willing to stick around and talk about anything you guys want to talk about. Cut down day for the Kansas City Chiefs this year. I expect the Chiefs will add at least 3 names. I expect that the Chiefs will add 3 names to their practice squad. If there is anyone who becomes a 53-man player for the Kansas City Chiefs, I'll probably be pretty surprised. I don't necessarily see any of that happening, except if there's somebody cut for like a Treylon Burks that the Kansas City Chiefs believe will actually be someone worth adding to the 53 over their 7th wide receiver, et cetera, whatever that combination would be for this roster. A defensive tackle, if there is an interesting defensive tackle to hit the waiver wire, that might end up being a 53-man roster add for this team. Last season, let's see, I believe they took 5 names into the year. Oh no, did I get away from that? I think I did. So, but last year on that opening roster, they did not have Chris Jones. So I'm not 100% sure that they are sold with their defensive tackles right now. So if there is an interesting name to hit from the defensive tackle market, that might be worth keeping an eye on. Anyone have anything to ask or add? Going once? Going twice? Guys, it's been an hour. Been good talking roster with you. And we will be back tomorrow with tomorrow is Wednesday. I'm not sure what we will be back with, but we will be back on Thursday with a things to watch for the game. I will try to get that out as early as possible. And as always, hope to have you back for the next one.